Another day, another story. On Saturday, February 8, 2025, a magnitude 7.6 earthquake struck approximately 126 miles southwest of Grand Cayman in the Caribbean Sea. The quake occurred at a depth of about 10 kilometers along the Swan Islands Transform Fault, which demarcates the boundary between the North American and Caribbean tectonic plates. Following the earthquake, the U.S. National Tsunami Warning Center issued alerts for several regions, including the Cayman Islands, Cuba, Jamaica, Honduras, and Mexico. Welcome to Tabo. Eminent Channel residents in coastal areas were advised to move inland and avoid shorelines due to the potential for hazardous waves. In the Cayman Islands, Hazard Management Cayman Islands promptly issued a notification encouraging residents to immediately move inland and away from the shoreline while the threat level was monitored. Wave heights of 1 to 3 feet were possible along the coastline. Fortunately, the tsunami threat has now largely passed, and the all-clear has been issued for the Cayman Islands. There have been no immediate reports of significant damage or injuries in the affected areas. The U.S. National Tsunami Warning Center said there is no tsunami alert for the U.S. mainland but issued a tsunami advisory for Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, which was later cancelled. The sounding of alarms in Puerto Rico's northwest region caused people to leave coastal areas and caused heavy traffic, according to local media. Hazard Management Cayman Islands urged residents near the coast to move inland and to higher ground. It said wave heights of 0.3 to 1 meter are expected. The event placed several areas along the Mexican coastline under threat of tsunami, with those warnings and advisories lifted more than 2 hours later, according to USGS. The event sparked a tsunami warning, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The earthquake was a result of a strike-slip faulting in the shallow crust near the boundary between the North American and Caribbean plates, according to USGS. With the latest modeling and information, the tsunami threat has passed, the U.S. National Tsunami Warning Center posted on X. There are no alerts posted for the United States or international partners. The tsunami threat has passed. Unusual currents may be noticed in some areas. Exercise normal caution. A short time later, the U.S. National Tsunami Warning Center issued a tsunami advisory for Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands and the British Virgin Islands. The advisory for those islands was later cancelled. However, a tsunami threat continued Cuba, Honduras and the Cayman Islands, the warning center said. A tsunami threat continues for Cuba, where a tsunami may reach 1 to 3 meters above the tide, and Honduras and the Cayman Islands, where a tsunami may reach up to 0.3 to 1 meter above the tide, the warning center wrote on social media just before 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. No alerts were issued for the mainland U.S. Local authorities in the Cayman Islands and Puerto Rico warned residents to stay out of the water for the time being. Although a high-impact event is not anticipated, as a safety measure no one should be in the water until further notice. It is important to follow official information and avoid the spread of rumors, Puerto Rico Seismic Network Director Ángel Vázquez explained. There have been no reports of damage from the earthquake itself, the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service told CBS News. The earthquake's epicenter was located approximately 130 miles south-southwest of Georgetown, Grand Cayman, at a depth of about 10 kilometers. This region lies near the boundary between the North American and Caribbean tectonic plates, an area known for significant seismic activity. In the immediate aftermath, the U.S. National Tsunami Warning Center issued alerts for several regions, including the Cayman Islands, Cuba, Jamaica, Honduras, and Mexico. Residents in coastal areas were advised to move inland and avoid shorelines due to the potential for hazardous waves. Fortunately, the tsunami threat subsided within a few hours, and the alerts were lifted. There have been no immediate reports of significant damage or injuries in the affected areas. Looking at historical data on geology, seismic studies, and cutting-edge data collection technology, they identified 500 fault lines which could potentially lead to earthquakes in the future. In the previous 200 years, 37 states have experienced earthquakes over 5 in magnitude, highlighting a long history of seismic activity across this country, the USGS said. The governmental agency, however, stressed that they were not making predictions, as that is an impossible task. No one can predict earthquakes, the USGS wrote. However, by investigating faults and past quakes, scientists can better assess the likelihood of future earthquakes and how intense their shaking might be. The Cayman Islands government had warned residents of coastal areas to move inland in a message on its website. The initial tsunami threat warning included more than a dozen countries. About 3 hours after the earthquake, U.S. authorities warned that minor sea level fluctuations of up to 30 centimeters, 11.8 inches, could still occur, but that any serious threat had passed. A tsunami measuring gauge at Isla Mujeres, on Mexico's eastern coast, measured a wave with a maximum height of 4 centimeters, 0.1 feet, after the earthquake, the U.S. Tsunami Warning Center said. The U.S. National Tsunami Warning Center said there is no tsunami alert for the U.S. mainland but issued a tsunami advisory for Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Hazard Management Cayman Islands urged residents near the coast to move inland and to higher ground. It said wave heights of 0.3 to 1 meter are expected. Puerto Rico Governor Jennifer Gonzalez Colon said in a statement she is in contact with emergency agencies after the tsunami advisory, but did not recommend anyone to leave the coast. The Dominican government also issued a tsunami alert and recommended residents on the coast to move to high areas of more than 20 meters of altitude and 2 kilometers inland. It also urged ships to steer away or avoid entering the sea for the next few hours. The Cuban government requested people to leave beachfront areas. Honduran authorities said no immediate reports of damage but urged its residents to stay away from beaches in the next few hours, local media said. Later, the U.S. government's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration said tsunami waves reaching 1 to 3 meters above the tide level are possible along some coasts of Cuba. It added waves between 0.3 and 1 meter above the tide level are possible for some coasts of Honduras and Cayman Islands. The USGS initially measured the earthquake at a massive 8.0, but later reassessed its energy and determined it measured 7.6. Because the temblor was located below an island surrounded by the Caribbean, according to USGS mapping, the agency said little or no population was exposed to the shaking. The USGS placed the quake at a strike-slip fault near the boundary between the North America and Caribbean tectonic plates. Large earthquakes at this location of the plate boundary are not unexpected, the agency said in an analysis published on its website Saturday night. It said 10 magnitude 6 or greater temblors have happened in the area in the last century. One of the most notable earthquakes in the region took place on January 10, 2018, when a magnitude 7.5 temblor caused some damage and a small tsunami, the USGS said. Luckily, the remote location of these earthquakes limits the potential for significant damage due to shaking, it said. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel.